Hey, everybody, welcome into Warp Factor 10, our show here on the Arena Productions that is all things Star Trek. And we're going to be talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 3, Episode 4. So we're going to be getting to that. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that there will be spoilers in this episode. So, of course, there is Mariner there with the spoiler alert. So I'm going to be talking about spoilers here in this episode. So I'm your host and the founder of the Arena Productions, and we're going to be talking about this episode. And it's interesting how there's kind of like two different arcs in this episode. So I'm going to be going through both of those arcs, and there's going to be some spoilers thrown out there. So just that's your spoiler warning. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the episode. So, first I'm going to go into the arc with Beta Shift and Delta Shift. But before I do that real quick, I want to go over what happens at the very beginning of the episode, because this is kind of a throwback to Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 7, Episode 17, I think it was, called Masks. But anyway, Captain Freeman is possessed by this mask, and she's floating around the Cerritos, and it's turning the entire Cerritos ship into like this ancient ruin, which is really, really weird. But anyway, she's able to get out of this, and basically it takes like a whole week for the engineers to be able to get the Cerritos to look normal again. And so basically, Captain Freeman orders the engineers to take some leave and to relax. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, I want to, before I get into all of that part of the story arc, I want to get into the other part, which was, of course, Beta Shift versus Delta Shift. So I'm going to show you the image there. Of course, you have Mariner and Boimler and Tendi here, of course, working together, because obviously it seems like there's some lottery going on, which I really didn't understand too much. Why on this military type of ship would they have some kind of lottery system going on for quarters? It was kind of weird. But anyway, so basically what they were doing is trying to supposedly on deck 1, there were like they thought there were like 4 different quarters available to take over. And so it was, the 3 of them, of course, Beta Squad versus Delta Squad. And of course, Delta Squad, obviously, they don't like Delta Squad, the Delta Shift staff. And so basically this whole episode was kind of like a race to get to the terminal to kind of rig the system of the lottery. But I just love when they were down underneath Hydroponics, and I think there was this as they were walking through Hydroponics too, you could see there was kind of like an Easter egg for one of the earlier episodes. I think it was in season 2. There was some type of emissary or whatever, and his corpse was like laying there in the side, within the vines as they go in there. But it was so funny how it's like Tendi, of course she's an Orion, and Mariner and Boimler, they start feeling the effects of the nitrous oxide. Of course, Tendi, she's immune to it, but then they just start hallucinating, and Mariner's arm, it was so funny. It's like the arms were like growing long, and then like Boimler had like some type of a starish fish head. It was pretty funny. And then he's like, oh, it's like the oxygen levels are at critical levels. And so, and then of course Tendi helps him get out of there and everything. And then later on, of course, they go in. I think it's actually before that they go into the holodeck situation. In the comments below, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think this scene here in this image was before the, before that part where they're hallucinating. Anyway. This was a cool scene here. It was it reminded me like of a Bonnie and Clyde type of situation. But of course, it's basically going back to Star Trek: The Next Generation. Of course, the Dixon Hill type of things that Picard was doing in the holodeck and everything. And I really like this scene. It's all in black and white. And then when the three of them, when Boimler and Mariner and Tendi get out of the holodeck after all the shooting and everything, it's like it goes right back to the color, when they go through the canopy area. So I really like the transition of the colors in those scenes. It was pretty cool. So anyway, but and then of course the inside the deflector, the deflector array thing here. I mean, this was a funny scene, but what I really didn't understand was they, it's like Mariner and Tendi, they take off their uniforms to be able to save Boimler. Of course, bold Boimler again, right? Trying to be bold and everything. But it's like, how did they get their uniforms to fit back on after them stretching it out like this? I mean, that was kind of a weird part of the episode. I was like, it's like they stretched out those uniforms. They either should have ripped or they couldn't have been able to wear them again. It's like they had them back on and you see the sweat stains and everything from the heat. But yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And obviously they get to the deck and obviously they look into the panel, but it was difficult for them to get there because obviously through the vents, the Delta shift, they had run into them and the Delta shift kind of fooled them into thinking that, oh, okay, we can work together and stuff, and they just fooled them and got away. But later on, obviously, they were, Boimler and Mariner and Tendi were able to get to the panel, but then they find out that it's like, it's not on the fourth, it's not on level, level 1 with 4 different rooms. It's on like level 4 with only 1 room. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of funny in a sense. So now I want to get back to the other part of the story arc, of course, with Captain Freeman and the engineers. And yeah, it's really cool how, of course, they go to the Dove, kind of like the ship to start relaxing and everything. That was really cool. And it's funny how they're like going through the corridors and the the Endosian is like telling them, it's like, oh, these relaxation facilities we have there, they're top notch and everything. And you see the Klingon like in that one room, and he's like throwing weapons at like the the targets and everything, and then he throws one like at the glass and it almost goes through the glass and almost kills one of them. But it's funny how like the engineers, they just don't understand how to truly relax. I mean, it's like they're, Billups and them, they're like trying to fix the, the door, in one of the scenes. And then in another scene, it's like they're in this, room and they're making a schematic and everything. And it's really pissing, Captain Freeman off. And there was a reference to, the Geordie LaForge, later on. It's like, you goddamn Geordie LaForges. As they're like carting her out because she becomes so stressed out. It's like these bands that they're wearing, they're supposed to be green, but then of course, it goes to yellow, and then for Freeman from yellow to red, and then to like black even, and it gets to a point where the engineers, Billups and, and Rutherford and all of them, they have to make a machine that's able to calm Captain Freeman down. That was pretty funny. And then it's like the staff, they're told, by the lead person there, it's like, get that thing out of here, because if they find out about this, we're out of business. So I thought that was really funny. So I mean, it was a cool episode. It was fun to watch and everything. I think a couple episodes before was a better episode. I think this was a good episode though, but Room for Growth was very good. It was funny in its own ways, especially the competition within the ship. And that's what I like about a Lower Decks, especially this season so far. And even in the previous seasons, that, I mean, you don't have to be, somewhere else in space to have a great story. I mean, there's great stories that they're bringing inside of the ship. It's like most of, except for the relaxation, ship that the engineers and Captain Freeman were on. I mean, it's like most of the episode, other than that, was inside the Cerritos. So I really enjoyed that. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, so all in all, it was a great episode. So yeah, so let us know in the comments what you thought of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 4, Room for Growth. I've been your host, Expat, of course, the host and founder of the Arena Productions here on YouTube and on Patreon. We do have a Patreon at patreon.com/thearena_podcast. So please go and check that out as well. And if you liked what you saw here on this episode with me here, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe and the notification bell for when we drop a new episode here on the Arena Productions and for our Warp Factor 10 All Things Star Trek show. So I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and hope to catch you in the next episode for Season 3, Episode 5, when we do our review of that. So take care, everyone. Peace out.